The great orbital station called Nexus Prime floated in the darkness of space like a massive wheel of silver and light. Inside its largest chamber, representatives from 102 different alien species gathered for the annual meeting of the Galactic Council. The room buzzed with strange sounds as creatures of every shape and size spoke in their native languages through translation devices. Ambassador Taeyang Kim walked into the chamber with quiet steps. He was a tall man with gray hair and calm eyes that seemed to notice everything. Behind him came 3 other humans, all wearing simple blue uniforms. They moved to their assigned seats near the back of the room without saying a word to anyone. Several alien delegates turned to look at the humans. Some whispered to each other. Others simply stared with their various types of eyes before turning away. This was normal. Humans had been part of the Galactic Council for 23 years now, and they always acted the same way. They came to meetings. They sat quietly. They voted on almost nothing. They spoke even less. At the front of the chamber, Councillor Velthar stood up to begin the meeting. He was a Quarix, a species that looked like giant reptiles walking on 2 legs. His scales were dark green and his yellow eyes gleamed with confidence. Velthar was one of the oldest and most powerful members of the council. He had been making decisions for the galaxy long before humans ever left their own solar system. Velthar raised one clawed hand, and the chamber grew quiet. His voice came out as a deep hiss that the translators turned into words everyone could understand. Welcome to another gathering of the Galactic Council. We have much to discuss today about trade routes, territorial claims, and technological sharing agreements. He paused, and his eyes swept across the room until they landed on the human delegation. A thin smile appeared on his reptilian face. I see the mute apes have joined us once again. How wonderful. Perhaps this year they will finally learn to speak like civilized beings. Laughter rippled through parts of the chamber. Some delegates looked uncomfortable, but most seemed to find the comment amusing. Taeyang's expression did not change. He simply looked back at Velthar with the same calm face he always wore. Velthar continued with the meeting as if nothing had happened. He began discussing the first item on the agenda, a dispute between 2 species over mining rights on an asteroid field. Various delegates stood up to give their opinions. Arguments were made. Votes were cast. Through it all, the human delegation sat silently. When their turn came to vote, Taeyang simply pressed the button marked abstain on his console. This pattern continued for hours. Item after item was discussed. Sometimes the debates grew heated with delegates shouting at each other in anger. Other times decisions were made quickly with little discussion. No matter what happened, the humans remained quiet. They abstained from every single vote. Halfway across the galaxy, Captain Mina Park stood on the bridge of her warship watching the council meeting on a screen. She was younger than Taeyang, with short black hair and sharp features. Her hands gripped the railing in front of her so tightly that her knuckles turned white. Captain, permission to speak freely? Asked one of her officers. Mina nodded without taking her eyes off the screen where Velthar was speaking again. Why do we let them talk to us like that? We could show them what we're really capable of. Because those are our orders, Mina said quietly. We wait, we watch. We stay ready. The officer looked like he wanted to say more but stopped himself. Everyone on the ship felt the same frustration. They all knew what Earth's military could really do. They had seen the weapons. They had trained with the technology. But they had also sworn to follow orders, and the orders were clear. Stay quiet, stay hidden, and above all, stay patient. Back at Nexus Prime, the meeting moved to its final topic of the day. Velthar stood again, and this time his smile was even wider. I have a proposal for the council to consider. As we all know, the human delegation has been part of our council for over 2 decades. In that time, they have contributed almost nothing to our discussions. They do not vote. They do not speak. They simply take up space in this chamber. He let his words hang in the air for a moment. I propose that we revoke Earth's voting rights due to chronic non-participation. They may continue to attend meetings as observers, but they should no longer have the power to influence council decisions. Not that they have ever used that power anyway. Murmurs filled the chamber. Some delegates nodded in agreement. Others looked uncertain. A few glanced at the human delegation to see how they would react. Taeyang stood up slowly. Every eye in the room turned to watch him. For a moment, it seemed like he might finally say something after all these years of silence. The chamber held its breath. Then Taeyang simply bowed his head slightly and sat back down. Velthar's laugh echoed through the room. As I expected, the apes have nothing to say for themselves. We will vote on this proposal at our next meeting in 30 days. Until then, this session is concluded. The delegates began to file out of the chamber. Taeyang and his team remained seated until the room was nearly empty. Only then did they stand and make their way to the exit. As they walked through the corridors of the station toward their ship, none of them spoke. On Earth, in a secure government building, President Daehyun Cho watched the meeting recording with several of his top advisors. He was an older man with tired eyes that had seen too many difficult decisions. When the recording ended, he turned to look at the people around him. "How much longer can we maintain this strategy?" asked one of the advisors. President Cho was quiet for a long moment. "As long as we need to. Every day of peace is a victory. Every insult we ignore is another day our people stay safe. But sir, they're pushing harder now. Revoking our voting rights is just the beginning. What happens when they demand more? Then we will make a choice," Cho said simply. "But until that moment comes, we follow the plan. We have come too far to let anger ruin everything we have built." In a laboratory deep beneath the surface of Earth, Dr. Ji-Won Lee worked late into the night. Her computers displayed detailed information about every species in the Galactic Council. Biological data, military capabilities, strategic weaknesses, cultural pressure points. 23 years of careful observation and analysis, all stored in encrypted files that no one outside Earth's government knew existed. Her assistant entered the lab carrying a cup of tea. "Another long night, Doctor?" Ji-Won smiled without looking up from her work. "Every night is a long night, but that is fine. We are building something important here, something they do not expect. Do you think we will ever have to use all this information?" "I hope not," Ji-Won said honestly. "But hope is not a strategy. Preparation is a strategy, and we have prepared very, very well." She typed a few more commands into her computer and saved her work. On the screen, a progress bar showed the status of her research. 97% complete. Just a little more time, just a little more patience. Then Earth would have everything it needed. If the galaxy forced them to act, humanity would be ready. They had been ready for years. They just hoped no one would ever force them to prove it. 3 weeks had passed since the last council meeting, and the situation had grown worse. Much worse. Taeyang sat in his private quarters on Nexus Prime, reading through the latest messages from Earth with a growing sense of unease. The Galactic Council had called an emergency session, and he knew exactly why. The chamber was more crowded than usual when Taeyang and his delegation entered. There was an energy in the air that felt different from before. It felt dangerous. Velthar stood at the front, and next to him was Councillor Threx, an insectoid creature from the Jiltari species. Threx's compound eyes glittered as he watched the humans take their seats. "Let us begin," Velthar announced. "Today we vote on several important matters. First, the issue of territorial claims in the Outer Rim sectors. As some of you know, humanity has claimed 17 star systems in that region. We have reviewed these claims and found them to be excessive for such a primitive species." Taeyang felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his face neutral. Velthar continued, "I propose that we reduce Earth's territorial claims to only 5 systems. The remaining 12 will be redistributed among more deserving council members who can actually make proper use of them." The vote began immediately. One by one, species voted yes. A few voted no. The humans, as always, abstained. When the final count appeared on the screens, the result was clear. 47 votes in favor, only 2 against. Earth's territory had just been cut by more than half. Threx stepped forward, his voice clicking and buzzing through the translator. "Now let me address something that has been bothering many council members. We have tolerated humanity's presence for over 2 decades, but what have they contributed? Nothing. Their technology is stolen and poorly understood. Their ships are held together with optimism and luck. They are evolutionary failures who only survived because their pathetic world had no real predators to weed out the weak." Laughter erupted throughout the chamber. Even species that usually remained neutral seemed amused. Taeyang could see some delegates trying to hide their smiles. Others laughed openly. Velthar raised his hand for silence. Counselor Threx speaks the truth we have all been thinking. Humanity is a joke. They sit in this chamber year after year, contributing nothing, saying nothing, doing nothing. They are parasites feeding off the civilization that we built. He turned to look directly at Taiyang. Tell me, Ambassador, do you have anything to say? Any defense of your worthless species, or will you just sit there like the mute animal you are? Taiyang stood up slowly. The chamber went completely silent. Everyone leaned forward, waiting to hear what the human would finally say after years of silence. Taiyang reached into his jacket and pulled out a small communication device. He pressed a button and spoke 2 words. Emergency protocol. Then he sat back down without saying anything to the council. Velthar's eyes narrowed with anger. How dare you ignore this council? How dare you treat us with such disrespect? His voice rose to a roar. I propose a new vote. Humanity will open all of their military installations to council inspection within 30 days. We will see what they are hiding. We will examine their pitiful weapons and their stolen technology. And then we will decide if they deserve to remain in this council at all. The vote passed quickly. 51 species voted yes. Only 3 voted no. Taiyang did not even bother to press the abstain button this time. He simply sat there staring straight ahead with an expression that revealed nothing. On Earth, alarms blared throughout the government headquarters. President Cho was pulled from a meeting and rushed to the secure command center deep underground. General Hana Song was already there, along with a dozen other military leaders and civilian advisors. What's happening? Cho demanded as he entered the room. Ambassador Kim has activated the emergency protocol, General Hana said. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were hard. The council has crossed multiple red lines. They have seized our territory. They have insulted us publicly. And now they are demanding access to our military facilities. President Cho sat down heavily in his chair. For 23 years, he had led Earth's strategy of patience and preparation. For 23 years, he had told his people to endure the insults, to stay quiet, to wait. Now that wait might be coming to an end. Show me the full report, he said quietly. The screens around the room lit up with information. Video feeds from the council meeting, analysis of the vote results, projections of what would happen if Earth refused the inspection demand. None of the projections were good. Sir, if we allow them to inspect our facilities, they will see everything, said one of the advisors. They will know what we have built. They will know what we are capable of. We will lose our strategic advantage. And if we refuse? Cho asked, though he already knew the answer. Then they will likely declare us in violation of council law, General Hana said. Velthar has been building support for military action against us. We have intelligence suggesting he has formed a coalition of species willing to enforce council decisions by force. Cho closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them again, there was a new hardness in them. How prepared are we? We have been ready for 7 years, sir. Every system is operational. Every ship is crewed and armed. Every contingency plan has been practiced and refined. If we give the word, we can deploy our full force within 6 hours. And casualties? General Hana hesitated. On our side, minimal. We have overwhelming technological superiority. On their side, it depends on how stupid they are. If they back down when they see what we have, casualties could be low. If they choose to fight anyway. She did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. President Cho stood up and walked to the large window that looked out over the command center below. Hundreds of people were working at their stations, monitoring the galaxy, tracking fleet movements, analyzing communications. They had all been preparing for this possibility. They had all known this day might come. Not yet, Cho said finally. We are not quite at that point yet. Ambassador Kim will refuse the inspection demand. We will see how the council responds. Perhaps they will realize their mistake. Perhaps they will see that pushing us further is unwise. And if they do not realize it? Asked one of the generals. Then we will teach them, Cho said quietly. Send orders to all fleet commanders. Move to ready positions but maintain defensive postures. Activate all deep space monitoring stations. I want to know about every ship movement in Council space, and get me a direct line to Ambassador Kim. Back at Nexus Prime, Taiyang received the communication from Earth in his quarters. He listened carefully to President Cho's instructions. When the call ended, he sat in silence for several minutes, thinking about everything that was about to happen. There was a knock on his door. One of his aides entered, a young woman named Sora, who had been with the delegation for 5 years. "Sir, the Council has scheduled another session tomorrow. They are going to demand an official response to their inspection order." "I know," Taiyang said. "Are the files ready?" "Yes, sir. Dr. Jiwon transmitted everything we need. We can upload them to the Council network at any time." "Not yet. We wait for the right moment." Sora looked worried. "Sir, they are going to destroy us. The things they are saying, the way they are treating us. It is only going to get worse." Taeyang smiled for the first time in weeks. It was not a happy smile. "Yes, it will get worse, but only for a little while. Then it will get much better. Trust me." Far away on a research station orbiting Jupiter, Dr. Soman Han ran the final tests on humanity's most advanced weapon systems. Everything checked out perfectly. The quantum disruptors were ready. The gravitic missiles were armed. The faster-than-light targeting systems had been calibrated to perfection. 23 years of secret research and development had produced weapons that were decades ahead of anything the Council possessed. She sent her report to General Hana with a simple message: "All systems ready. We can deploy on your order." Then she sat back and waited, like everyone else in Earth's military, for the word that would change everything. The Council chamber felt different when Taeyang entered the next day. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation and something else, something darker. Velthar stood at the center of the room, flanked by 6 other senior council members. They looked like judges preparing to deliver a sentence. Taeyang walked to his seat without hurrying. His team followed behind him. They all wore the same calm expressions, but inside each of them felt their hearts beating faster. Today would be the day. Today everything would change. "Ambassador Kim," Velthar said, his voice dripping with false courtesy, "the Council has been very patient with your species. We have tolerated your silence. We have accepted your refusal to participate, but we will not tolerate defiance. You have been ordered to open your military installations for inspection. The Council requires your response. Will you comply?" Taeyang stood up slowly. The entire chamber went silent. Every alien delegate leaned forward to hear what the human would say. After 23 years of near silence, what words would he finally speak? "No," Taeyang said clearly. Just one word, but he spoke it with absolute certainty. Velthar blinked his yellow eyes in surprise. "What did you say?" "No, we will not comply with your order. Earth's military installations are sovereign territory. You have no right to access them." Laughter burst out from several delegates. Threx's clicking voice cut through the noise. "The ape thinks it can refuse us." "This is hilarious. Does it not understand the situation?" Velthar held up a hand for silence. His reptilian face twisted into an expression of anger. "Let me be very clear, human. If you refuse this order, we will consider it an act of hostility against the entire Galactic Council. We have the authority to enforce our decisions with military force." "Then you will do what you must," Taeyang replied calmly. "And so will we." Velthar's eyes narrowed. "You dare threaten this council? You and your pathetic species with your primitive ships and your stolen technology? We could wipe out humanity in a single day if we chose to." "Perhaps," Taeyang said, "but I do not think you will. And why is that?" "Because you do not actually know what we are capable of. You have assumed we are weak because we chose to be quiet. You have mistaken our patience for cowardice. You have made a very serious error in judgment." Velthar slammed his clawed hand on the podium. "Enough of this nonsense. I am placing a formal demand before this council. Humanity must provide the coordinates of all their colony worlds within the next 24 hours. These colonies exist because we allowed them to exist. It is time we took proper control of these systems," Threx added his voice. "Yes, and these colony worlds would serve better as labor stations for more advanced species. Humans can work the mines while those of us with actual intelligence make use of the resources." A cold silence fell over the chamber. Even the delegates who had been laughing earlier seemed uncomfortable now. This was no longer just about insults and mockery. This was about taking human worlds by force. This was about treating humanity as slaves. Counselor Miraset, an aquatic being from the Nalvorian species, spoke up for the first time. Her voice was soft but carried clearly through the translator. Council members, perhaps we should reconsider this course of action. We are talking about seizing populated worlds. This could lead to conflict. Conflict? Velthar laughed. With what army? Humanity has perhaps a few hundred ships at most. The Council has tens of thousands of vessels at our command. There will be no conflict. There will only be compliance or extermination. Taeyang reached into his jacket and pulled out a small data chip. He held it up for everyone to see. Before we continue down this path, I think the Council should see something. May I access the central network? Velthar waved his hand dismissively. If you want to bore us with human propaganda, go ahead. It will not change anything. Taeyang walked to one of the access terminals and inserted the chip. Within seconds, files began uploading to the Council's public database. Every delegate's personal console lit up with notifications. What is this? Asked one of the delegates, a bird-like creature from the Skyrthy species. This, Taeyang said calmly, is what we have been doing for the last 23 years while you thought we were doing nothing. Delegates began opening the files. The chamber filled with gasps and shocked whispers as they saw what the files contained. Detailed military analysis of every Council species, complete breakdowns of their weapons technology, their ship designs, their tactical doctrines, biological information about every alien race, including vulnerabilities and weaknesses, economic data showing exactly which industries and trade routes each species depended on, strategic assessments of every star system under Council control, but most shocking of all were the timestamps on the files. They went back years. Some of the earliest data was from the very first month humanity had joined the Council. For over 2 decades, while sitting quietly in these chambers, humanity had been studying every species with scientific precision. This is impossible, Threk stammered. How did you gather all this information? We watched, Taeyang said simply. We listened. We learned. You thought we were weak and stupid. That made you careless. You never bothered to hide anything from us because you never saw us as a threat. Velthar's face had gone dark with rage. This is espionage. This is an act of war. No, Taeyang corrected him. Espionage would be if we stole classified information. We did nothing of the sort. Every piece of data in those files came from public sources, from open observations, from simple scientific analysis. You gave us all of this information freely. You just never expected us to actually use our brains to understand it. Counselor Miraset was scrolling through the files on her console, her expression growing more worried by the second. Council members, I recommend we reconsider our current approach. These files show a level of analytical capability we did not expect from Earth. Perhaps they are not as primitive as we assumed. It does not matter, Velthar roared. Analysis and data do not win wars. Ships and weapons win wars, and they have neither. He pointed a clawed finger at Taeyang. You have 48 hours to comply with all Council demands. Provide the coordinates to your colonies. Open your military bases for inspection, or we will take them by force. The Quarix fleet alone will be enough to crush any resistance you can offer. On Earth, President Cho watched the Council session with his command staff. When Velthar made his threat, Cho turned to General Hana. How long until the Quarix fleet reaches our territory? If they leave immediately, about 6 hours. Then we have 6 hours to prepare a proper welcome. General, send the order. Declassify Protocol Aegis. Let them see what we have built. General Hana smiled grimly. Finally, I will issue the orders immediately. Across human space, secret commands went out to hidden facilities. In the asteroid belt, massive shipyards that had been disguised as mining operations powered up. In the clouds of Jupiter, weapons platforms that had pretended to be research stations activated their systems. In the Oort cloud at the edge of the solar system, thousands of ships that had been hiding in the darkness for years began moving into position. Commander Ji-hoon, Kang led one of Earth's reconnaissance teams that had been embedded on a Quarix world for the past decade. They had been living as simple merchants running a small trade shop, observing everything around them. Now they received new orders. Begin transmitting real-time intelligence about Quarix military movements. Within an hour, Earth's command center had detailed information about every Quarix ship, every base, every weapons depot. They knew exactly what was coming and exactly how to counter it. Captain Mina Park stood on the bridge of her flagship, the ENS Indomitable. Around her ship, hundreds of other human vessels moved into defensive formations. She had waited years for this moment. Years of training, years of preparation, years of swallowing her pride while aliens insulted her species. Now the waiting was over. All ships report ready status, her tactical officer announced. Good, Mina said. Now we show them what humanity can do. Now we show them why our silence was not weakness, it was wisdom. Back at Nexus Prime, Velthar had ordered the Quarix fleet to move immediately to Earth's solar system. 200 warships, the pride of the Quarix military, began their journey. It would take them 6 hours to reach human space. Velthar was confident that would be more than enough force to crush any resistance. Taeyang and his delegation returned to their ship. As they prepared to leave Nexus Prime, Sora asked him a question. Sir, what happens now? Taeyang looked out at the stars through the viewport. Now we find out if they are smart enough to back down when they see the truth. If they are wise, this ends quickly with minimal bloodshed. If they are proud and foolish, then we will be forced to teach them a very hard lesson. And if they refuse to learn, then they will learn anyway, Taeyang said quietly. The hard way is still a way. The Quarix fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system, exactly 6 hours after leaving their home territory. Admiral Borum Yoon watched their arrival on the tactical displays aboard the ENS Indomitable. 200 warships arranged in a classic attack formation. They looked impressive. They looked unstoppable. They were about to learn how wrong their assumptions had been. Admiral, the Quarix fleet is broadcasting a message, reported Lieutenant Hyun-Woo Choi from the communications station. Put it through, Borum commanded. A holographic image appeared showing a Quarix military commander. His scales were scarred from previous battles and his voice was filled with confidence. Human vessels, this is Commander Grath of the Quarix Imperial Fleet. You are ordered to stand down immediately. Surrender your ships and open your military facilities for inspection.
Any resistance will be met with overwhelming force.
You have 5 minutes to comply. Borum looked at the tactical display again. The Quarix ships were spread out over a wide area, probably expecting to find only a small defensive force. What they found instead was something quite different. Lieutenant Choi broadcast my response on all frequencies. I want everyone to hear this, including our friends at Nexus Prime. Ready when you are, Admiral. Borum stood up from her command chair and spoke clearly. Commander Grath, this is Admiral Borum Yoon of the Earth Navy. You have entered sovereign human territory without permission. You have threatened our worlds and our people. I am giving you one chance to turn around and leave peacefully. If you choose to attack, you will regret it. This is your only warning. Grath's holographic image laughed. You think you can threaten us with your handful of primitive ships? Our sensors show maybe 300 vessels in your defensive fleet. We have fought and won battles against odds worse than this. Last chance, humans. Surrender or die. Show them. Borum said quietly to her tactical officer. Every human ship in the solar system had been running stealth systems, making them appear as simple civilian vessels or hiding their signatures entirely. Now those systems deactivated all at once. The Quarix sensors suddenly lit up with new contacts. Hundreds of them. Thousands of them. Commander, we are reading massive contact multiplication. One of Grath's officers could be heard shouting in the background, new signatures appearing everywhere. I count over 2,000 human warships. So where did they all come from? The confidence drained from Grath's face. His eyes went wide as he saw the tactical situation collapse around him. He was not facing a small defensive force. He was facing an armada that outnumbered his fleet 10-1. Borum's voice came through again, cold and hard. You were warned, Commander. Now you see the truth. Leave now, or we will remove you. At Nexus Prime, the entire Galactic Council was watching the confrontation on the main view screen. Velthar stood frozen, unable to believe what he was seeing. Threx's compound eyes darted back and forth as he tried to process the impossible situation. Other delegates whispered in shock and confusion. This cannot be real, Velthar muttered. Where did they get so many ships? How did they hide them? Councillor Zevran, the bird-like delegate from the Skirthi species, spoke up. Perhaps we should have paid more attention to what they were doing instead of what they were saying. Or rather, not saying. Back in the Sol system, Commander Grath made his decision. Pride and duty demanded he follow his orders. All ships prepare to attack. Target the largest human vessels. Fire on my command. Commander, I strongly advise against this course of action, one of his officers said. Your objection is noted. Fire! The Quarix fleet opened fire with everything they had. Energy beams and missiles streaked across space toward the human fleet. For a moment, it looked like a proper battle was beginning. Then the human ships responded, and the Quarix learned the difference between their technology and Earth's. The human vessels did not just dodge or block the incoming fire. They did something the Quarix had never seen before. Space itself seemed to twist around the human ships as quantum shields deflected the energy weapons harmlessly. Gravitic fields caught the missiles and crushed them into nothing before they could detonate. And then the human counterattack began. Beams of pure quantum energy lanced out from the human ships, each one targeting the power cores of Quarix vessels with impossible accuracy. Gravitic missiles that could bend space-time tore through Quarix shields like they were not even there. Faster-than-light targeting systems meant that human weapons hit their targets before the Quarix sensors even registered. The shots being fired. Lieutenant Hyunwoo watched his tactical display with professional detachment. Admiral, enemy shields are collapsing across their entire fleet. 40% of their ships are already disabled. 60%. They are breaking formation. It had been less than 10 minutes since the battle started. The Quarix fleet was not just losing. They were being systematically dismantled with surgical precision. Admiral, we are receiving multiple surrender requests from Quarix vessels, reported the communications officer. Borum nodded. Accept all surrenders. Order our ships to cease fire on any vessel that powers down its weapons, but maintain defensive positions. This is not over yet. Commander Grath stared at his tactical display in horror. In 17 minutes, his fleet had gone from confident attackers to broken survivors. 80% of his ships were disabled or destroyed. The remaining 20% were desperately trying to retreat. His own flagship was crippled, drifting in space with failing power systems. Get me a channel to the human admiral, he said quietly, all the pride gone from his voice. Borum's face appeared on his view screen. Yes, Commander? We surrender. Please stop firing. We surrender. Your surrender is accepted. Your surviving ships will be escorted to a holding area where your crews will receive medical attention. You will remain there until this situation is resolved. Borum paused. Commander, I want you to take a message back to Velthar and the Galactic Council. Tell them what you saw here today. Tell them that this fleet, this armada that defeated you, is only a small part of Earth's total military strength. We have been building and preparing for over 2 decades. If they choose to escalate this conflict further, what happened to you today will seem like a minor skirmish. Grath nodded weakly. I will tell them. I do not think anyone will believe me, but I will tell them. At Nexus Prime, the council chamber had erupted into chaos. Delegates were shouting at each other, demanding explanations, calling for emergency sessions. Velthar stood at the center of it all, his face dark with rage and humiliation. Taeyang walked calmly to the center of the chamber. He did not wait for permission to speak. He simply began talking, and his voice cut through the noise like a blade. For 23 years, we remained quiet. We watched you. We learned from you. We prepared for the day when our patience might run out. That day has come, not because we wanted it, but because you forced it upon us. He turned slowly, making eye contact with delegates from every species. You called us apes. You called us primitives. You called us evolutionary failures. You were wrong about all of it. We stayed silent not because we were weak, but because we valued peace above pride. We abstained from your votes not because we were afraid, but because we were observing and learning. His voice grew harder, but you mistook our patience for cowardice. You mistook our silence for stupidity. You pushed and pushed until you finally crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed. What happened to the Quarix fleet today is a warning, a demonstration, a message. Taeyang pulled out another data chip and held it up. On this chip is information about military demonstrations happening right now at every human colony world in the galaxy. Every council species that tried to intimidate our colonies with shows of force is currently watching their ships being disabled by our defenses. We are not attacking them. We are not destroying them. We are simply showing them what we can do. He inserted the chip into the terminal, and video feeds appeared on every screen in the chamber. Dozens of different star systems, all showing the same scene. Human ships emerging from hiding to outnumber and outmatch the council vessels that had come to threaten them. This war, if you want to call it that, is over before it truly began. Taeyang continued. We have won. Not through aggression, but through preparation. Not through cruelty, but through superior strategy and technology. Now the question is, what happens next? Do you accept this new reality? Or do you continue to fight a battle you cannot win? Counselor Miraset spoke up, her voice shaking slightly.
Ambassador Kim, what are humanity's demands?
Respect, Taeyang said simply. That is all we have ever wanted. Respect as equals. Respect for our sovereignty. Respect for our right to exist without being insulted and threatened at every turn. Give us that and we will be the best allies you ever had. Refuse and we will defend ourselves with every resource at our disposal. Belthar finally found his voice. This is not over. You may have won today, but the Council has thousands of ships. Tens of thousands. We will not be intimidated by one minor victory. Taeyang looked at him with something like pity. That was not a minor victory, Counselor. That was a warning. If you choose to escalate, you will learn just how deep humanity's preparations go. We have weapons you cannot imagine. We have strategies you cannot counter. We have been planning for 3 days after the Battle of Sol. The Galactic Council was falling apart. The massive chamber at Nexus Prime had become a battlefield of words and accusations. Species that had been allies for centuries now shouted at each other across the floor. Trust had shattered like glass, and every delegate could feel the pieces cutting into them. Belthar stood at the center of the chaos, trying desperately to hold together what remained of his authority. Beside him stood Threx and 5 other species representatives who had agreed to support continued action against humanity. They called themselves the Alliance of Ascended Species, though many of the other delegates were already calling them something else, the Fool's Alliance. We cannot allow this insult to stand. Belthar shouted over the noise. Humanity has attacked Council ships. They have threatened our sovereignty. If we back down now, we show weakness to the entire galaxy. Counselor Pralvesh, a crystalline being from the luminary species, stood up. Her body glowed with a soft blue light that dimmed when she was upset. Right now she was very dim. Counselor Belthar, humanity did not attack us. They defended themselves after we threatened them, after we tried to seize their territory, after we demanded access to their military facilities. We are the aggressors here, not them. They destroyed Quarik's ships. Threx clicked angrily. They disabled Quarik's ships, Counselor Miraset corrected. I have reviewed the battle data. Every human weapon was calibrated to disable, not destroy. They could have killed every Quarik soldier in that fleet. Instead, they let them surrender and provided medical care. That is not the action of an aggressor. That is the action of someone showing remarkable restraint. Belthar's tail lashed behind him in frustration. It does not matter. We have the numbers. The Council controls tens of thousands of warships. Even if humanity has a few thousand ships with advanced technology, we can overwhelm them with sheer force. Can we? Asked Counselor Zevran. The bird-like delegate ruffled his feathers nervously. Can we really? They have been planning this for 23 years. Planning and building and preparing while we laughed at them. What else do they have that we do not know about? The chamber erupted in arguing again. Some species agreed with Belthar that the Council needed to respond with force to maintain authority. Others argued that peace with humanity was the only sensible option. A third group remained neutral, too afraid to take either side. In a smaller conference room away from the main chamber, diplomat Sora Yang met with representatives from 30 different species. These were the delegates who had quietly reached out to Earth asking for private negotiations. They wanted no part of Belthar's war. Thank you all for coming, Sora said, speaking in the calm, professional tone that Earth's diplomatic corps had perfected. I know many of you are taking a risk by meeting with us like this. Earth appreciates your willingness to talk. A delegate from the Marathi species, a feline-like being named Korin, spoke first. Ambassador Yang, please understand our position. We do not want war with anyone. What Counselor Belthar is proposing is madness, but we also have to think about our own survival. If we openly break with the Council, we could face retaliation. We understand completely, Sora assured him. That is why Earth is offering individual peace treaties and mutual defense pacts to any species that wants them. You do not have to publicly break with the Council. You can simply refuse to participate in military actions against us, and if anyone threatens you for that decision, Earth will defend you. A murmur went through the assembled delegates. This was a generous offer, more generous than many of them had expected. What are your terms? Asked a delegate from the Voran species. Respect, fair trade, and non-aggression. That is all. We do not want tribute or territory or special privileges. We just want to be treated as equals. Over the next several hours, Sora negotiated and signed 34 separate peace agreements. By the time she was done, more than a third of the Galactic Council had officially chosen peace with Earth over continued conflict. Velthar's coalition was shrinking before it could even properly form, but Velthar was not giving up. In a secure conference room, he met with Threx and the other leaders of the Alliance of Ascended Species. They were planning their next move. "We have 13 species committed to our cause," Velthar said, studying a holographic display of the galaxy. "Together we can field 50,000 warships. That should be enough to crush human resistance." Threx clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. "But where do we strike? They have forces everywhere. If we scatter our fleet to attack multiple targets, they could defeat us piecemeal like they did to the Quarks." "Then we do not scatter," said one of the other Alliance members, a slug-like being called Mortis. "We gather our full strength and strike at Earth itself. Cut off the head and the body dies." Velthar nodded slowly. "Yes. We mobilize the full Alliance fleet and attack Earth directly. Even with their technology, they cannot stand against 50,000 ships. We will overwhelm them with numbers." What none of them knew was that Commander Jihoon's reconnaissance teams were listening to every word of their planning session. Earth had operatives embedded throughout the Council species governments and militaries. When Velthar's plan was transmitted back to Earth, President Cho and General Hanna were ready with their response. "They are going to try a mass assault on Earth," General Hanna reported. 50,000 ships in a single fleet. Can we stop them?" President Cho asked. "We can do better than stop them. We can end this war without killing anyone." She brought up a tactical display. "This is what I propose." While General Hanna explained her plan, Colonel Junho Nam was leading his Special Forces teams on missions across Alliance territory. They were not attacking civilian targets or military bases. Instead, they were conducting precise strikes against ship construction facilities and weapons production plants. Every strike was surgical. Every target was carefully chosen to cripple the Alliance's ability to make war without causing unnecessary casualties. On a shipyard orbiting a Quarks world, Junho's team planted devices that would shut down the construction equipment without harming any of the workers. On a Ziltari weapons factory, they disabled the power systems and left a message explaining that the facility could be easily repaired once the war was over. But trying to continue production would be futile. The Alliance leaders watched in growing frustration as their military production ground to a halt. They still had their existing fleet of 50,000 ships, but they could not build more. They could not replace losses. Earth was sending a clear message. "We can reach you anywhere, we can touch anything you have, but we choose to be merciful." Dr. Somin sat in her lab on the research station near Jupiter, making final preparations for the reveal that would change everything. She had been working on this project for 15 years, and now it was finally time to show the galaxy what humanity had really accomplished. "Doctor, we are ready for the demonstration," her assistant informed her. "Good. Broadcast the feed to the Council network. Everyone needs to see this across the galaxy on every world and every ship." A transmission appeared on all communication channels. Dr. Somin's face appeared, standing in front of what looked like a small metallic sphere. "Citizens of the galaxy," she began. "I am Dr. Somin Han, Director of Earth's Quantum Weapons Research Program. What you are looking at is one of approximately 15,000 platforms that humanity has placed in orbit around every inhabited world in Council space over the past 20 years. Your scientists believed our exploration ships were simple research vessels. They were correct, but they were researching more than stars and planets." She gestured to the sphere. "Each of these platforms contains a quantum-entangled weapon system. They are connected through faster-than-light communication to a central control network. What this means in practical terms is that Earth has the capability to defend or, if necessary, strike at any location in the galaxy simultaneously. The implications hit the watching delegates like a physical blow. Humanity had not just been building a fleet. They had been surrounding every Council world with weapons for 2 decades. Weapons that had been invisible, ignored, dismissed as harmless scientific equipment. We built this network not to threaten you, but to ensure our survival," Dr. Somin continued. "We knew that if conflict ever came, we could not allow ourselves to be vulnerable. But please understand, we have no desire to use these weapons. They exist purely as deterrents. We want peace. We have always wanted peace. We just needed to be strong enough that no one could force us into submission." Counselor Pralvesh was the first to respond publicly. She broadcast a message to her homeworld and to the rest of the galaxy. The Luminary people formally apologized to humanity for the treatment you have endured from this council. We recognize that we judged you unfairly and treated you with disrespect. We ask for your forgiveness and hope to build a better relationship going forward. Her declaration opened the floodgates. Within hours, dozens of other species issued similar statements. The momentum was swinging decisively toward peace. Velthar's alliance of ascended species was looking more isolated and desperate by the moment. But Velthar refused to accept defeat.
Gather the fleet, he ordered.